What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Triple H podcast, Happy Hour Hoops, presented by Trainwreck Sports. It's Thursday, November 7th, and let's just get right into it, guys. Let's get into the news because, Jake, this is a perfect way to set you up. Right at the top of the docket, we have the Cavs' first 9-0 start in franchise history, which when I saw this note, was kind of surprised because we know a guy named LeBron James hung around Cleveland for quite a bit of time. So I was a little surprised to see this. But, Jake, let's start with you. First little ticket of the news here. Cavs are 9-0, league best, conference best. Vibes must be immaculate.
Immaculate. Yeah, that's a great word. Great word to describe it. Kenny Atkinson, also the first coach in NBA history to start 9-0 in this first year with a new team, which I think is as big of a deal as it is for the Cavs historically. That's huge, right? And that's a theme for me a lot that we're going to be talking about with the show is these teams that look so much different with these new coaches. And we've been talking about Kenny Atkinson the last couple of weeks, so we don't have to dive into it more. But you're seeing it, and you can see the confidence. Like in a game last night, they beat the Pelicans. They were down at they were down early, down by 10 early. Battled back. It was tied at halftime. And then they just kind of took over in the second half pretty easily. Like they just knew that they were able to do it. So it's a thing that I feel like is sustainable. I still don't think they're the best team in the league. Basketball Power Index has them second. Do you guys want to hear this fun stat? Make us feel good right off the top, guys. Number one in the Basketball Power Index. I don't know how much stock you take into it. I don't take a lot, but it is fun to look at. The Boston Celtics, number one. The Cleveland Cavaliers, number two. And the Dallas Mavericks, number three.
Oh, fuck yeah.
I can't disagree.
How does that feel? What are we talking about?
Now we have to be a Power Index podcast.
I know. That's what I mean. We're all about the Power Index.
I'm kind of surprised, though, that the Mavs are ahead of the Thunder, to be honest.
The Thunder are fifth. They're behind the Suns as well. Okay. The Suns are fourth. Okay. But if you go by the playoff Power Index, the Thunder would be second, also behind the Celtics. Okay. Then the Cavs go to third, and the Mavs go to fourth. So it does switch around a little bit there. I don't know what the difference between. We know what the difference between playoff and regular basketball is. So I guess
I'm gonna make a claim right here. I'm gonna say Happy Hour Hoops officially endorses the Power Index.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna make a claim right now.
Hold up. Let's get a banner. Let's get it going.
Let's make this official.
We might have to check the Power Index weekly.
You might have to. Because that's surprising. Because I know the Mavs had 3 losses, but that's kind of surprising a little bit. But hey, Power Index doesn't lie. I'm not gonna complain.
Happy Hour Hoops. We're just fans of good teams here, and that's just the brass tacks.
And I will say, even though the Mavs do have 3 losses, they have the worst record of the three of our teams. Like, I felt good about watching the first 8 games of the season. I know, Donnie, your team's 7-2, but I think you felt the same way.
Yeah.
Like, you felt good about the team. Obviously, the Celtics, they've been the best team for 3 years. It's hard not to feel good about watching them. But it really has felt that way, despite the Mavs being just 5-3. Feel good. But, Jake, I haven't watched a ton of the Cavs this year.
Yeah.
So I kind of have a question for you.
Yeah,
9-0. Do you think it's the coaching that's making this big of a difference, or is it just the whole team being healthy right now and kind of playing together with that chemistry? Because that's we didn't really see that from the Cavs last year, right? What's been, I guess, a bigger reason in your mind? Because you've watched as much Cavs as anyone right now.
Yeah. I would say so. It's a combination of two things. It's not just Kenny Atkinson. Like, he has been a great help. You guys know how much I was not a fan of JB Bickerstaff and the way he was coaching that team. Right. He wasn't using them offensively the right way. I don't think he really knows how to. I think that's just his limitations as a coach. So Kenny is doing that and activating these guys, putting them in better positions with the ball. Obviously, the confidence of Mobley and confidence of these guys offensively that he's given them. LeVert, another guy too, is a huge deal. But Mitchell said I think it was on NBA Sirius XM NBA radio before the season in an interview with Wob or whoever it was, that there's a kind of, it was during training camp, he's like, there's a kind of like clarity or just like sense of calm this year because Mitchell signed for 4 years. Garland's here for a while. Mobley's going to sign a big deal. Like, Allen signed now. There's no talks of instability. Like this team, they have an identity. They know who they are, which is what I'm very thankful for JB Bickerstaff, because I think he instilled this identity into this group and why they're going to be successful for years to come. And now they know that they're with a coach that they obviously believe in and are playing for. So I think that's what it is. It is a lot of the chemistry that is just coming out and that they're healthy and together. But the coach is also helping that confidence and chemistry build and have a ceiling that's been way higher than years past. But I really do think the Mitchell thing is at least 40% of it, because there had to be some anxiety in it. And you got to throw 10% into health because Darius Garland has not gotten smacked in the face or broken his eye socket yet, knock on wood, or whatever crazy thing could happen to him. And that how has he looked when he's been healthy this year?
Right.
He's been awesome. He's been incredible. And I think that's the biggest difference to this team. I think Mobley and Allen last night, they had like 16 points and 15 points each. That's basically what they do, right? Like that's what they've been doing the last couple of years, with Garland doing, if he's more consistent and Mobley can reach higher peaks during the season. Yeah, this is what this team could be. So it's fun. And I think the East also is so much worse than we thought going into the season. And the Celtics and Cavs are clearly a level ahead of everybody else in that conference. And Donnie, we might get to 60 wins each by default, just because these teams are so bad. Like we're going to get to play you guys are going to get to play the Raptors and Nets like 6 times or 5 times each. What does this mean? What did we sell out on, Slick Al?
The basketball power index.
The basketball power index, 100% is what he's referencing.
No, yes, you're right.
Slick, what are you complaining about? Your Celtics are number 2. All right,
yeah,
or number one, right? Number 1 on there.
Number 1.
What do you complain about, Slick?
Maybe he's selling out with us.
Maybe it's because
he's worried. He's worried about that position. Yeah.
Hey, I mean, if the basketball power index keeps going Celtics, Cavs, Mavs, we might have to have a conversation.
Here's the thing:
we might have to make a phone call.
If they turn on us, then we'll just create the happy hour hoops power index.
Yeah,
and then we'll recreate. That's how this works now. So we can just make it up ourselves.
We will have the most powerful basketball index before the season's over. That's our show's goal. Other news: Paul George returned to LA and got booed. Sixers also lost, so tough night for PG.
That's crazy.
He said he was confused too.
Yeah, it's not his fault. It was not his fault in LA.
He wanted to stay too.
He wanted to stay, and they just couldn't find a healthy team around him.
Yeah.
You're gonna boo anyone? Boo Kawhi. I know he's still there, but that's the one who deserves to get booed for this LA thing not working out. And it wasn't really Paul George. Like the way he left LA was not bad. It was not worthy of a booing. Also, no offense to Clippers fans if you're watching, but you weren't good enough to boo him.
No,
you weren't good enough to boo. If you came up short and maybe you choked the playoffs, sure you weren't. You were never in that spot. You're never in the spot, and he was the only one playing. Yeah, the system. But Paul George was the only one playing when half the team was banged up. We saw what are we doing here?
He had Terrence Mann as a co-star in multiple playoffs, and
co-teammate, Dunny. Yeah, co-teammate. I never call Terrence Mann a star.
That's my point, though.
I know.
So yeah, tough look for PG. Also didn't shoot well first game as a Sixer. I mean, they're having just all sorts of issues right now that we're going to get to. But yeah, tough for Paul George, tough for the Sixers. Clippers got to win, but they're not really in a position to boo anyone right now. Ja Morant, speaking of boos, does not like the Lakers. Let it be known last night. The Grizzlies defeated the Lakers, and then Ja had some words in the locker room. A visibly frustrated JJ Redick, which is the first time we saw this.
Yeah.
At least that I had seen this season, where he's kind of the calm, cool, collected guy. Has a little bit of a Joe Mazzulla vibe to him too, where he just speaks his mind at the press conferences and stuff. But Redick visibly frustrated, Ja speaking his mind, saying he doesn't like the Lakers. What did you make of this? I mean, this has been going on a couple of years now, but the Grizzlies-Lakers beef was in full force last night.
Yeah, this is a wild turn. I was not expecting Lakers-Grizzlies to be the rivalry that Ja chose, but I guess if you're gonna you're gonna go at anybody, go at LeBron and get the notoriety because of it. They did play. I watched a bit of that game last night. The Lakers are just, I mean, it's just the Lakers again. It feels like that's what we're more of the same with them.
Team.
And yeah, and Ja is just gonna be himself and talk shit, man. Like that's just where we're at this point. The Lakers right now are averaging 115 points, and opponents are averaging 120 against them. They have a negative 4-point differential. They're the only team in the West in a play-in spot that it has a negative point differential.
Jeez,
so it's tough for the Lakers at the moment.
They could never make our power index, bro.
Yeah, they won't. They will not be at the top of the power index. Not
same
at all.
Team. Everyone kind of like jumped the gun early in the year when they saw the first couple of games. Like, oh, look at this new Lakers scheme and everything, and now they're just back to their old ways. Hey,
on the other,
Bronny James is in the G League where he belongs. So hey, good job, Lakers.
I almost put it in the notes.
On the flip side, though, that I know I didn't come with a Bronny update. I figured that would just be mean. And Steve chose mean. Steve chose mean.
Oh yeah, he did.
Yeah, that's why Steve.
On the other side of the conference in the East, though, only 4 teams have a positive point differential in a playoff spot or play-in spot. It is the Cavs, Celtics, and then the 6th seed Knicks have a positive point differential, and the Heat. That's it.
Heat, really?
Yeah, the Heat.
I am not surprised.
That was a good game last night. I caught some of that too of Suns Heat. That was the Heat. They're gonna give every good team like a 5-point game, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That's the design of the Heat this year.
Yeah. That is a crazy stat about the Eastern teams, though. That's nuts.
It's wild. But Ja and the Lakers are that's just a bunch of mid getting mad at each other in the West.
Pretty much.
That's what it comes down to.
My favorite part about that too, and the last thing here is just the Grizzlies team is, I guess, not entirely young, but they have some young guys and just other shit talkers on the team. So like once Ja starts it, they all just get in on it, and that's just. They just make that their MO for the rest of the game whenever Ja gets into it with someone.
Yeah.
I tell you what, Grizzlies starting 5 would be very low on my list of teams I wouldn't want to get in a fight with.
Right.
Picking NBA starting 5s, they're very on the list. Desmond Bane's Jack. Ja Morant is an athletic freak. You got Zach Edey, who I don't want to mess with. Zach Edey. Yeah, he's a monster. Jared Jackson, Grizzlies. Yeah, I think
Marcus
they're
Smart
tough like the Grizzlies. Yeah, Marcus Smart, he's tough. Yeah. Like this is the team you don't want to mess with, but first start winning some games, and then we can get back to like the Grizzlies trying to be the bad boy Pistons.
Yes.
But hey, Zach Edey been playing well. He's been playing well lately. So the Grizzlies.
We're gonna talk about the Grizzlies Rooks in just a minute here. To round out the notes, Jaylen Brown is missing some time with a hip injury for the Celtics. He's already been ruled out of 2 games, or he's already missed 2 games, ruled out for Friday's game against the Nets as well. This sucks. I hope it's a short-term thing and they're just being cautious more than anything with Kristaps already being out. Obviously, the Celtics have shown they don't need him for all opponents, but of course you'd rather have Jaylen Brown out there more times than not. And how about this?
Those Nets.
I know. Hey,
talk to me in a month.
Hey.
Talk to
Nets
me
Friday
in a month.
For the C's should be interesting. Cam
4-4.
Thomas, bucket getter.
Yeah, he is a bucket getter. Dennis Schroeder's not going to keep up what he's been doing.
They are the team in the East that is closest to a positive point differential. Actually,
I want to see the Nets on the power index at some point this year.
The Nets would be like top 13 at least.
No.
Bro, they're 4th in the East.
I know where they are.
As of today.
I know where they stand. I just let's pump the brakes on the Nets. It's been 8 games. Ben Simmons is still on the basketball court. Like we all know.
Ben Simmons. What would you guess? Do you know Ben Simmons' stats right now? Either of you? What would you guess they are?
I would guess like 6, 7, and 6.
I was gonna say 8, 7, and 9.
8, 7. All right, Dunny, you're way too high, buddy. You're giving him a little bit much there. Steve, you're a little too high there.
Okay.
He is averaging 5.8 points a game, 6 rebounds, 6 assists.
All right, I missed the rebound by 1.
You were only I said just a little high, Dunny,
I mean, that's kind of what you expect at this point.
He's only taking 5 shots a game.
I got fooled by the offseason clips.
Well,
But
here's the
the
thing.
offseason
It's-
clips the first 2 games. I saw a couple Ben Simmons highlights, and I'm like, oh, he is playing well.
And it's hard to take more than 5 shots a game when Cam Thomas is taking 50, right?
Well,
like
that's
that's
true, too.
hard. When Cam Thomas is shooting as soon as he touches it, it's hard. I love watching Cam Thomas. I'm not saying that is a bad thing about Cam Thomas. Keep shooting. There's not many guys who
Also,
shoot on that team. But.
Tough to take more than 5 jump shots a game when your jump shot looks like Ben Simmons does. But
That's
all right.
also true.
Okay, that was uncalled for.
Ben
Just
Simmons,
uncalled for.
He's shooting 60% from the field, though. So on those 5 shots, he's hitting 3 of them, guys. That's pretty good.
Let's see
That's
how
pretty
far
good.
from the basket his average shot distance is.
Yeah, Mr. 666.
Put some respect on
he's
Mr.
on his demon
666.
time. He's on
Yeah,
demon
Ben Simmons
time.
on demon time.
No, you know who was on demon time to start the year was Dennis Schroeder. That's why I don't think
Yes.
I don't believe the Nets at 4-4. He's not going to average 20 points a game. He was
He
scoring
probably
30
won't
in some
be.
games.
He probably won't be a net by the time the season's over.
You think Nets are sellers?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
Donnie,
they're gonna-
anyone
they're
can
gonna
make the
tank at
Eastern
some point.
Conference playoffs.
Finney Smith,
True.
Schroeder, those kind of guys, they can go get picks for all
They-
those guys. Because we were
They should be.
talking about this. My dad and I were talking about this last night. There's like 2 players on this team, 31 and up. I think that would be Schroeder and Finney Smith. And then it's basically like 20 to 24-year-olds.
Yeah, I think
So it's a team
yeah.
ready to tank and rebuild. Finney Smith will get a second, like a couple seconds or a first from somebody this year. And Schroeder will get a nice little haul for a team that is trying to, win a title or something like that. 'Cause
any
he's on a nice
contender that
contract
needs
too.
bench scoring or guard
Yeah.
depth.
Genuine question, guys. Like, because we know the Cavs and Celtics are very good. We know what the rest of the East is, and there's a couple teams in the middle, a couple teams that have been really underperforming. But like, what team in the East right now would you say is the biggest buyer? Right now, if you had to look at the Eastern Conference teams, it'd be like, this is a team I expect to go out and try to get someone. Because I don't know. I genuinely,
Okay.
I'm looking the Hawks.
I was just gonna say, I think it
Like-
might just be Atlanta. If Atlanta
That's what I'm
decides to
thinking.
double down on Trey,
Right.
that's the way to do it. I would also say the Magic could be pretty big buyers.
That's what
Paolo
I was
comes
gonna
back.
But
say,
they,
Healthy.
Hawks
look,
and
like, they
Magic.
have looked like a completely different team since they lost.
But if they
Banchero.
really want to make
yeah.
the playoffs and Paolo comes back and they're like, we need one more guy,
But-
I could see them doing that. But they're not going to add. They're
It's
not going to
an
add
unknown,
Schroeder and take away
right?
from like Suggs and
Right.
Black and everything.
Dark
like that
horse,
either, so.
Charlotte Hornets.
I was gonna say Charlotte too, Tony. I was gonna say
Yeah.
Atlanta and Charlotte.
Charlotte would need like a defender for sure. That's who they should be going after. If
They do,
they're gonna
but they
buy,
have
need
that kind of young
defenders.
core. We haven't
They
seen
do,
Mark
yeah.
Williams back. They got LaMelo Ball,
That's
Brandon
true.
Miller. You look at kind of the other teams. Either their roster's kind of solidified, or it's getting older.
Shouldn't the
or they're
Bucks be
just
buyers? Like they have to do
we'll get to
something.
the Bucks. We'll get to the Bucks.
We'll get to the Bucks. You're right.
And
We
yeah,
will get
just
to
to
the
round out
Bucks.
the news here, we'll get to the Sixers too, but Tyrese Maxey to miss a couple weeks with a hamstring injury. We're going to be talking about the Sixers, so we can address that a little more, but obviously sucks for Sixers team who came into the season injured, just got Paul George back,
Yeah.
still waiting on Embiid, who caught a 3-game suspension for shoving a reporter, which is a whole nother story that
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll touch on. Again, we're going to talk about the Sixers in a little bit, but not looking great in the city of brotherly love.
before we move on, Dunny, I don't know if you guys saw the joke that was kind of circulating the internet on Embiid's suspension. They're like, if they really wanted to punish Embiid, they'd make him play 3 consecutive games rather than suspend him for 3. They're like, you got to play 3 in a row.
Make it mandatory that he
That's
plays the
funny.
Denver game.
Yeah. But there should be an exception. I don't want to get too deep into this, but there should be an exception to the rule on suspending a player if the certain comments are said, like
Right.
what they were to Embiid. Like, you
Yeah. All that being said, I don't blame Joel Embiid for what he
No,
did.
not one
Yeah.
bit. And I don't think he
They
should've-
had to-
like.
They had
I
to
get
suspend
it.
him. Yeah,
I
but
get
it's-
it, but it's not fair
Yeah.
No.
when someone's saying something like that. And I don't want to dive into it, but it's just ridiculous that.
Yeah. Well, what I do want to dive into is our 3 big things,
Okay.
which will transition. And Steve, we're gonna start with you because it's the natural thing here. So I'm gonna let you take the floor here, and then Dunny will go to you, and I'll wrap it up here at the end. So Steve, what do you want? What are we talking about here this week?
So my three big thing is kind of like a question to you guys right now. It's kind of a question to everyone right now. It's almost a question to myself because I go back and forth on this over and over again. I really don't know my answer. But let's bring up the three worst records in the NBA right now, guys. We've got the Utah Jazz at 1-6. We expected the Jazz to probably struggle a little bit, right? They're probably going to sell off some pieces. They got young guys, but it's inconsistent. You know, you see signs from like Keontae George. And then the other two 1-6 teams are the Milwaukee Bucks and the Philadelphia 76ers. Two teams where this was kind of their last chance. I think we talked about coming into the season that this is kind of a make or break year for these teams. They're starting off both 1-6. They've each had their own issues. And so I ask you guys, I ask myself, I ask everyone watching right now, who would you rather be a fan of? Would you rather be a fan of the Milwaukee Bucks, or would you rather be a fan of the Philadelphia 76ers? And then let's not look at the past for any of this, right? Because the Bucks have the title and everything. So not counting that. I'm saying from this point going forward, would you rather be a fan of the Milwaukee Bucks or would you rather be a fan of Philly? And I guess that question can almost kind of be worded into like, which future do you think's brighter, right? Kind of.
Yes.
Because I keep going back and forth on this because I think Milwaukee Bucks have two glaring issues, and the first issue that we have talked about, I still don't know, is head coaching. I mean, what are we doing at this point? I still don't understand how Rivers is still there. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. I don't understand. Like the head coaching issue has been just terrible for Milwaukee, dating back to last year, leading into this year. I mean, they play so bad at the end of games, and that's unlike Milwaukee teams in the past. And then the other thing too is just they're getting older, man.
Yeah,
they're getting older. Where I give the Bucks, I guess, the edge over Philly is I think the Bucks have, in my opinion, a top 2, top 3 talented player in the NBA, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is willing to play for the team, and I think truly does want to play in Milwaukee, but will not want to play in Milwaukee if it keeps trending the way it's going. But I really do think if you put the right pieces around him, I think he stays. So I think that's kind of a plus for Milwaukee. And also, too, I mean, they just seem like a much better team on paper than Philly right now, in my opinion. Like the depth, like the roster decisions they've been making, I haven't hated the past couple of years, like the role players they're getting. And then you look at Philly. I mean, Philly it's a disaster right now. You guys can't stay healthy, and I'm not going to blame a team for health, right? You never want to blame a team for health. But your superstar refuses to play back-to-backs. I won't get into the suspension because you guys know how I feel about that. He's still, coming back. He'll be playing next week, but how long will he be playing for until he's hurt again? Your other star, Paul George, is still trying to ramp up into, full speed playing. We'll see what he even gets to. And then now you got Tyrese Maxey, who just got hurt. And I think if you look at both of the teams, I think maybe the brightest spot going forward is Tyrese Maxey for the Philadelphia 76ers. But I don't like what they're doing building around. I think they have a significant advantage in the coaching department. Yeah. But I've been going back and forth on this. I'm genuinely curious to hear your guys' opinions on who would you rather be a fan, Milwaukee or Philly?
Mine's kind of easy for me, and it's strictly because of Tyrese Maxey. I think I'm going Philly. I think the way I look at it too, especially because you kind of made the point about just like the better way to phrase it is like which team do you think has a brighter future?
Yeah.
I look at it as both the Sixers and the Bucks could trade their 2 stars if they wanted to. So I think they kind of are a wash in that respect where if they really wanted to start a rebuild, they could both get a haul for Giannis and or Embiid right now. So that was kind of a wash to me. And then the rest of it was I thought about the coaching too. I think Philly has a slight upper hand there. And I just really, really, really like Tyrese Maxey, the player. I think he's super exciting. I think Jared McCain was a great pick for them this year. I like some of the other moves they made this offseason where I didn't really like how stagnant the Milwaukee Bucks management kind of was this offseason. So there's that. And then the only other thing is just kind of, and Kendrick Perkins actually talked about this today where he said that Giannis is a lot to blame for this because he has blood on his hands. And I kind of agree with that because this is a guy who, whether it was his decision or if he fought for it, he gave the okay at the end of the day to trade away Drew Holiday, who he won a championship with, to bring in Dame Lillard. Then they had Adrian Griffin, and they started last year as the 2 seed. He wanted to get rid of Adrian Griffin. Mm-hmm. They did that for him. And then, we talked about it in our first episode of the season, but his comments in the offseason or at the beginning of the season to start the year were a little strange. So just things seem sour in Milwaukee right now. No, we just talked about how weird Philly is too. Like, I'm not saying this is a good spot for Philly, but just those 2 young guys for Philly. And I just think the vibes are slightly better. They're not good in either city right now, but slightly better vibes in Philly. And I'm a Tyrese Maxey guy. So I would choose Philly, I think.
So with your answer, Dunny, then are you expecting Giannis to leave Milwaukee at the end of the season?
It's trending that way right now.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised. Let's say that.
Okay. Jake?
That I pretty much wholeheartedly agree with Dunny that it's because of Maxey, but from the negative side, I don't think there's a chance Giannis is here for the long term. Whether it's this summer or beyond, I think he asked for it's he has opened the door already. But he did it very passive aggressively, but he opened the door this summer by mentioning him getting traded and saying the team would want to do it. There is some truth the team might want to do it though, because they don't really that's the only option for a rebuild at this point. Is you trade Giannis and just admit that the roster's too old and go through painful years. There's no other way this ends because he's not just going to ride it out with a team that's going to be 500 for the rest of it. This team is below 500 right now. And this team should be at least 4-4. The fact that they're this bad shows that there's just like, it's so much worse than we all thought. None of us are fans of Doc Rivers, but this is just like, how did we get here at this point? And Doc, for him, why didn't he just stay with his cushy job with ESPN and just go watch some basketball and everything? This is crazy, man. Like it's the worst case scenario. So yeah, Philly, same thing. Like Philly, it might be coming towards the end with Embiid, but at least that they'd be looking for somebody immediately to pair with Maxey, and that's a better spot to be in. There's nothing on that Milwaukee roster that's redeemable. They'd have to sell if they trade Giannis. They got to get rid of Dame too, probably, and ship him off. And what will they get for Dame? Like nothing really. Pennies on the trade that they got him for and everything. So it just the future looks real dire for Milwaukee in any shape. Like there's not really a lot of hope for them. Where at least Philly, you can have some pieces there to be excited about.
Well, what if we had? I know we had the 6-team trade last year. What if we had giant multi-team trade here where I don't know where it would be, but Embiid moves somewhere from Philly. Milwaukee gets a ton of assets, complete rebuild, and Philly somehow gets Giannis. that's my brain just being like, I want chaos. And I just I look at that, I'd be like, I actually think Giannis would be a fantastic fit in Philly. If you swap him with Embiid, obviously Embiid on Milwaukee wouldn't work at all. But it just feels like Giannis, if you're going to trade Giannis, you're not going to trade him to a team that I think is looking to start off be taking that next step, right? You're going to trade him to a team that's already established. That always has assets they can give back. The Thunder makes sense, but I also think on the Thunder's idea, obviously the picks, they have a ton of picks, but they're going to want a couple of the young, good players from the Thunder. I don't think the Thunder want to break up that team.
No.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
I mean, it's just they've exceeded expectations, it feels like, the past 3 years. This year, they look like one of the most dominant teams of basketball. Their only loss this year was to the Nuggets in a tough game on the road.
Well, the Miami Heat are live and ready to sign or trade for anyone at any point. So
that's also true.
Because every time I open X, it's just about how the Miami Heat are interested in or could possibly trade for blank.
If I don't see the Miami Heat or Los Angeles Lakers rumored to pick up a superstar, then we've lost the NBA media.
Yeah.
We've just lost it. If I don't see that each day, at least one of those teams rumored to pick up a superstar, then I don't know what we're doing.
But yeah, it's tough sledding for these two Eastern Conference teams. It's just like a wild surprise at the very least, because I think we talked about it in the season preview, but I thought it may be challenging for the Milwaukee Bucks this season just because of their age, and Giannis can only do so much. But outside of just roster construction and age, like there's something wrong in that locker room.
All right, last thing.
So do you want to know a trade that could work? I was just working the trade machine. I was trying to figure out a three-team trade.
Oh,
it would with Miami. It would work with Hartenstein would be a way to get it done, but you can't use the trade machine with him because he's not able to be traded yet. With Miami, Giannis to Philly, Joel to Miami, Hero, Duncan Robinson, and it would have to be as many picks as you could possibly get.
I don't think
get it done.
Enough picks.
You could also put in let's see if Jaime goes in there too. Send him to the Bucks. That also works too. So put Jaime Jaquez in there.
Maybe.
That's kind of what you're looking at for a 3-team deal.
I don't think Miami would. That would not fit. Miami with Embiid, that would not be a fit.
Hey, Butler loves Embiid.
I know Butler loves Embiid. They still got Bam.
Yeah, Bam and Embiid would be a mess, bro.
That would be tough. That'd be tough. Last question I want to ask you guys on this topic before we move on to your guys' point. Milwaukee, Philly, I know they're both 1-6 right now. Who do you think finishes with the better record this year? And do you think they're both playoff teams? Not playing. You think they're both safely in the Eastern Conference playoffs? We just talked about how bad the Eastern Conference is. These teams could very easily just rip off 4 or 5 wins in a row in conference.
The Bucks are still going to make the playoffs and be a 6 or 7 seed, I think.
Okay, that's low for the Bucks, 6 or 7. I mean, that's crazy.
I think they're 40. Maybe I think they're around 45 wins.
Could you imagine you're the 2 seed and you have to play the Milwaukee Bucks? You're like, oh, I got to play Giannis in the first round.
I mean, if Embiid comes back anytime soon, I cannot see that team missing either. But I mean, just taking a peek at the standings and just seeing them below the Pistons, the Raptors, the Wizards. It's alarming.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah. Bro, it's tough.
I think I'll say they both make the playoffs, but it's not sure about it.
Behind Dame and Giannis, it's Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez, and those are the other leading scorers at 12 and 10. This is brutal. There's no answers on this roster for them. That's the thing.
Yeah, you're right.
Maybe they should have kept Drew Holiday around and just got some shooters.
I guess the only counter I'd say to that is we watch the NBA long enough to know if you have a complete juggernaut superstar on your team, you're going to usually be a competitive playoff.
That's true.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of the one sport, I guess you could say football with the quarterback, but that's kind of the one sport where they're you really don't need a good team, good coach. If you have this type of superstar on your team, they can kind of overcome all that. And, I think we've seen throughout their careers, both Embiid and Giannis are capable of that and capable of single-handedly winning games.
Yeah. It's weird, man. Sixers, Bucks. What are we gonna do with these guys?
If you were told me at the start of the NBA season that the Utah Jazz would be tied for the worst record in the NBA with the Philadelphia Sixers and Milwaukee Bucks, damn. I mean, that's right. It's why you play the games.
Yep,
crazy.
Exactly.
1-6 Sixers the year they get Paul George. Milwaukee Bucks.
The Philadelphia 1-6ers.
Oh, Donnie was waiting on that one. Donnie was waiting for that one.
That felt good.
That was great. That was wonderful. All right, Donnie, what do you got for us this week?
My turn. My big thing for our 3 big things this week is this rookie class may have been disrespected, dare I say, because the rookies, no one's going crazy or anything, but I think better than people expected, at least for myself. And I say that because the names I'm about to talk about aren't the Stephon Castles, aren't the Rob Dillinghams, aren't the Reed Shepherds of the world, who we expect those guys to be good because as far as talent goes and what we saw in college basketball last year, those were some of the better players. But I'm here to talk about going into last night's game. the rookie points per game leaders were Zach Edey, Bob Carrington, Alex Sarr, Jalen Wells, and Zach Richeche. And it's crazy because the Wizards and Grizzlies both have 2 rookies on this list. So it's funny that they're on the same teams and they're getting these opportunities. Edey, we expected, but there were a lot of people who doubted Edey at the NBA level, but he's looked great. And Steve, I think you had this in our season preview where you're like, this just might be a good fit for Edey. And it's like, all he did was win in college. All he did was produce in college, whether you liked it or not. That's Zach Edey, and it's translating so far. And then Jake had this in the notes, but kindly moved it to my 3 big things here because that I purposely said that list was before last night's games where Zach Richeche was last, but he's probably first now because he had his coming out party, 33 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocked shots. The 33 points is the most by a rookie this season and easily bested his season high of 17 points. According to ESPN, Slick don't call us sellouts. Richeche, 19 years old, also joined Wembanyama, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Lamar Odom as the only players to have 30 points and multiple blocks and steals in a game before they turn 20. Richeche is the only one of those players to also have had 5 threes made. So definitely a coming out party. Pretty crazy from the rookie. Obviously, we talked about some other guys, but Richeche making real waves here. What do you guys think of him and the rest of the rookie class so far?
He's been impressive. I felt like he's gotten kind of better as each game's gone on. Kind of similar with Zach Edey too, right? Where Zach Edey is, I think his first game he had 6 fouls in like 16 minutes.
Yeah,
and he's like, oh, okay, this is how they call him in the NBA. But he's kind of adjusted, and I think he had a big night the other night too with Edey. I think it was like 25 and 12 or something like that. The biggest thing I think I say with the rookie classes now, especially last year is a really good example about it, is because we didn't really hear about a lot of the rookies right off the bat. And then it just takes time, man. It just takes time. And sometimes all it takes is an opportunity. My biggest concern for Reed Sheppard this year, Dunny, is I said he was going to be buried on the Rockets depth chart. And that's kind of what we've seen. They're giving guys like Tari Eason and Amen Thompson more run, and as they should, right? They have more NBA game experience. Amen Thompson's a perfect example. First half of the season last year looked like nothing, couldn't barely get on the court. Second half of last year, he looked like he could be a guy for this team. And I think that's kind of what we see nowadays with these NBA rookie classes, because there's so many international players getting drafted who are super, super young, right? There's so many college guys that you don't have the 4-year seniors anymore. You don't have the guys that are already ready for the NBA level. It's going to take time. And I think sometimes you just got to be patient. And to see right now, Dunny, that there's not like the big, I guess, household names from this rookie class already starting to make impacts. It's a great sign. It's a great sign for this rookie class. And you look at like last year's rookie class of guys who maybe flew under the radar a little bit, not the big names, but a guy like Bilal Coulibaly is making an impact on the Wizards this year. A guy like Keontae George of the Utah Jazz is really making an impact. And why is that? It's because they were inserted into the starting lineups this year. They were actually getting some run. And I think we're going to just see these rookies as the year progresses, kind of get more and more reps, more and more minutes. And that's huge at the NBA level, because I think you guys and I are both under the belief that anyone on a current NBA roster can drop 25 points in a night. These guys are some of the most talented players in the world. And the NBA, the roster size is so much smaller than all the other professional sports. You truly have to dominate at every single level of basketball before the NBA to just make a roster, not just have a role, but to make a roster. And we've seen plenty of times guys who have been dominant in college ball or high school ball go play overseas because they just couldn't get consistent minutes on an NBA roster. Yeah. So I say this all the time. If you are good enough to be a player, especially at the age that these rookies are, 19, 20 years old, to make an NBA roster, it's just a matter of time before you get your opportunity. And Dunny, like you said, all it takes is kind of one of those coming out party games. like we have seen from a couple of these big rookies so far. And next thing you know, they're getting 30-plus minutes a night. So I think you're right, Dunny, where keeping tabs on kind of the guys that we kind of overlooked in the rookie class is like, oh, they're getting minutes. They're playing well with it. Because all it takes, and not that I'm rooting for it, but all it takes is one injury to kind of open up a spot for one of these rookies to get a larger role. And then there you go. Now it's just, let's see what you can do, kid. And we're seeing that not just in the rookie year, but like what I said, what I always kind of look for is kind of those sophomore players, right? Those second year or even third year guys where it's like, oh, they're really starting to make the leap. We saw it from Kobe White last year, the Chicago Bulls, right? Took him a couple of years. We're seeing it with Jalen Suggs of the Orlando Magic, guys that we almost like the beginning of the career, you kind of forget about. You're like, maybe he's not that good.
Peyton Pritchard kind of happened last year.
Exactly. And, a guy I think who's going to be a great example of this is going to be Stephon Castle of the San Antonio Spurs. He's off to kind of a slow start right now. He's just not getting a lot of minutes. Minnesota's not playing either of their guys.
I was going to say, I feel the same way about Dillingham. I think
Dillingham or Shannon.
Most teams are like 7-8 games in at this point. Dillingham didn't score his first basket until like 2 nights ago. Right. And yeah, he's a perfect example of that. He was talked about as one of the more talented guys in this class, and he's he's got to wait his turn.
But and that's the thing. All it takes, and we're going to see it. We saw it with Amen Thompson last year. We saw it with Podziemski of the Golden State Warriors. All he needed was an opportunity. Now he might be the second best player on the team. I mean, Trace Jackson Davis, same team for the Warriors. We didn't expect him to see the floor last year, and now he's making an impact role in the Warriors. And I'm sorry to bring that up, Dunny, because the Celtics lost to the Warriors, but that's not the reason I did. The reason I did is just because I think sometimes we get so worried as NBA fans, we're like, they got to dominate right away, or everyone loves to use the word boss. I hate the word boss. I hate that word more than anything. It's like, these are 19 and 20-year-old kids. Yeah. They can't legally drink in the United States yet. Like, give it time. You just got to give them reps. And so it's good to see that we're only a couple weeks into the NBA season, and we're seeing these rookies already start to get reps, Dunny. Because once the minutes increase, then I think we can really kind of make an assumption of how deep the rookie class is.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't have a lot more to say about the rookies this year. I think it's just always like with these groups that come in, it's always like, oh man, don't expect anything from these guys. It's like, why should we ever say that about any of these classes coming in when you're proven wrong so many times? So yeah, it's been fun to see. And last night, seeing Ricochet getting being on Twitter and seeing the notifications about him going off and seeing what was going on. And then you see how it ends up with where he is along history. It's like, let's enjoy it. Like, enjoy these guys having these big moments and doing whatever. They might not end up super duper stars, but they still have to have these moments to be established in the league too. So yeah, it's been fun. I think that the class has been much better. Everybody wanted to just dunk on it right away, and it's been a lot better than people thought. So
I don't know if you saw what Ricochet said a few weeks ago. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was basically him saying like how he was just able to dominate overseas because of his athleticism.
Yeah, he said he was athletic in the Euro leagues, but he's just a regular guy.
That's what it is in the NBA now, right? I'm just the guy. That's what the standard of athleticism is in the NBA. And we've gotten to that point where we've talked about if you're 6'10", 7 foot, you still better know how to dribble and create your own shot nowadays. Or you're not gonna find your way on an NBA roster. Yeah, it's just how it is now.
And maybe that realization earlier in your career helps you out, and you figure out how to actively change it up. So, all right, my big thing, and I'll keep it short here. We don't have to talk a lot about it. I just want to hear what your guys' opinion is. Right now, the Phoenix Suns are 7-1, off to a wonderful start. They look like the team that we thought they were going to be the last couple of years. I think they're a huge beneficiary of coaching, not because we all like Frank Vogel and think that he's a good coach, but I think with this type of team and the roster that they've assembled here with the offensive talent, Mike Budenholzer makes all the sense in the world to be the head coach of this team. Yes. And one man he's been the beneficiary, Budenholzer, of the play of Kevin Durant, who right now 7th in the league in scoring, 27, almost 28 points a game. 7 rebounds a game. He's shooting 55% from the field, 40% from 3. And usually he's near a 50, 40, 90 guy. You know that Durant is only shooting 81% from free throw? It's 7% less than he's ever shot in his career. He's usually an 88% free throw shooter. So that number is going to go up. That's really the only thing you can complain about with Kevin Durant this year. Last night, he had 32 and 8 in that win over Miami that I was talking about. I find myself, if you were to ask me, the first couple weeks, teams that I've watched on League Pass, besides the Cavs, the Suns are very high on that list. They've been so fun to watch. Whether Booker or Durant's going off for 30 every night, it's usually one of them. Can Durant keep this up, though? If Durant keeps this up, how serious do we have to take Phoenix in the West?
I think he can keep this up because he kind of did this last year. Yeah. The Suns just as a whole were so fucking bad that it got overshadowed by that. And I agree, Jake. Like, obviously, I don't think Vogel's a bad coach, but Coach Bud, I do think is a better coach. And the Suns had the effect of almost like when a guy gets broken up with for X, Y, or Z, and he goes to the gym that whole summer and just gets jacked. Like, I think the Suns had to look themselves in the mirror and be like, how did we suck with this team last year?
Right.
I know they had a few good additions. I know they changed the coach, but I think they really just looked themselves in the mirror and were like, we have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker on this team, and we played like that last year. And so I think KD can sustain this and go to the finals. I don't know, just because, the Dallas Mavericks still exist. The Oklahoma City Thunder still exist. Can never really count out Denver, even though it's been ugly so far. Can they be a finals contending team? I think absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think the biggest key to this, guys, is two things. Number one, they've played 8 games this year. In 8 games, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant have played and started. That is
Remember
massive.
How they started last year?
They couldn't see the court together. Right? So not only are you getting two of the most offensively gifted players in the world on the court together, but they're playing together. They're gaining chemistry together. And not only that, Jake, you've watched a lot of Suns games. I have too. They have a true point guard in Tyus Jones. And when you have that,
for them.
When you have that, we can watch. KD sometimes will just stand in the corner. Because you know what? It's Booker's time to shine for a little bit. And they can vice versa. They can just kind of play off each other a little bit. And when you have a true point guard, there's not as much pressure. When we were watching the Suns last year, A, they could never be on the court together. But B, when they were, it was always that guy taking the ball up the court. It was either KD or Booker taking it up. They were getting doubled. They were just guys in their face the whole time. It was tough. Now you actually have that true point guard in Tyus Jones. And I'm not saying Tyus Jones is a superstar, but having an actual point guard helps these guys so much get what they want to get, be in the spots of the floor that they want to be in. And I think you're right, Dunny. I mean, when healthy, this team could go up against anyone, I think, in the Western Conference. Auburn, beat the Mavs this year.
Yeah.
This is a team. This is a team that could go up against anyone. And I think we're starting to become very, very spoiled as basketball fans because right now, what LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry are doing, where at the certain years in their careers that they are, the amount of minutes they've logged on a basketball court, and they just aren't going away, is outstanding. It's I've never seen this before. And I know it comes, this generation, the training, the technology, everything's kind of like different. Their players are, kind of built to be able to have a longer career, a little bit more longevity than back in the day. But guys, it's so impressive to watch. You watch Kevin Durant on this Suns team this year so far, you would think he's entering year 5, 6 in his career.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's actually wild. The fountain of youth must exist. It has to with these guys. It has to.
And I will say too, Kevin Durant has been like one of my favorite guys to bet on this year for scoring because he just not only is Kevin Durant a bucket getter and it's just like a safe bet sometimes, it's just like you said, Jake, like you've been watching them on League Pass. Like when you bet on a guy scoring, like there's probably not a better person to actually watch do the scoring than Kevin Durant.
Right.
Because it's so effortless.
You're right.
He makes it look so damn cool every time. And then, you feel a little more confident about it. By the way, NBA player props, 9-5 on the season so far.
Ooh, okay, Donnie.
Ooh.
That's positive. That's positive right there.
I love that. Love that. All right, well, let's keep talking about the Suns a little bit here. Let's get into our weekend preview here. So weekend preview, and this is a chance to talk about Steve's Mavs as well. Now, Steve is not as excited about this game with some guys out, but Steve, this Mavs team this year, and I think is going to be, obviously, you know this, and I think that it's something that we need to hammer home for people, though. It's going to be a team that wins defensively in a lot of these games against these big matchups. If you look at them compared to a bunch of their West compatriots, they're the third best defense in the West, and maybe in the league. No, fourth in the league.
Yeah,
it's very slightly behind. No, that they're slightly ahead of the Heat now. So they're third in the league defensively when it comes to points per game. They're not scoring as much as some of the high end teams in the league, but it's a team that is going to dominate defensively without Washington, without Lively. Tougher defensive matchup with those guys, but you're at home.
Yeah,
you never know.
It's Luka versus the Suns. You can never count out Luka versus the Suns, right? We know what that story has been of the Luka versus the Suns, and it's always fun to watch him play the Suns. I'm a little concerned just because Lively's been out for a couple games. I think he's probably leaning towards being out. I don't know if it's confirmed yet. PJ Washington's confirmed out tomorrow night, which is a tough one because you're losing two of your better rim protectors, two of your better defenders, two of your better guys, like big men who can pass, and PJ Washington sometimes can stretch for that corner three. So it's going to be interesting. I believe when the Mavs played the Suns earlier this year, Jusuf Nurkic cooked them down low. And, as much as I love Daniel Gafford, he's not going to be able to play 35. That's just not how Gafford's game is. He doesn't play like that. And the Mavs went small, and they have gone small. They were playing very small the other night where they were using Najee Marshall as one of their big men and, playing Luka, Kyrie, Clay, and then insert whoever you want with those four. It's a concerning game because, like I said, I'm a little worried about down low with Nurkic.
Yeah.
I love Gafford, but I just sometimes, the matchups just don't kind of work for him. And he's not a guy who's going to play 40 minutes. But this Mavs team has been very impressive defensively, besides just the front court, but the back court too. Klay Thompson's been playing really, really good defense for the Mavs so far. Luka and Kyrie are playing like it's in the playoffs for their defense, and I think the biggest difference from last year to this year has been the team defense. It feels like there's a lot of help off the ball. There's a lot of traps. They're forcing more turnovers, forcing more steals. And that's a good sign because I'm never going to be concerned about the Mavs offense, Jake, because at the end of the day, you have Luka and Kyrie. You have two of the most gifted playmakers to not only get their own shot, but to pass teammates wide open. And, we've only played 8 games so far this year with Najee Marshall and Quentin Grimes. Still got to kind of get used to this team. Najee had a nice game a couple nights ago. He had 20 points. The other night, got a little bit of an injury, kind of came out early, but he was playing well when he was on the floor, getting assists, getting rebounds. So it'll be nice to see him have a larger role. They played Omax a little bit the other night, so I'm sure he'll play a role in this game. It's always a toss-up when it's Suns Mavs, especially when the Mavs are home. And Luka, I don't think there's a team in the NBA he wants to beat more right now than the Phoenix Suns. It's turned from a hated rivalry, I feel like, almost into a friendly rivalry. But it's still, at the end of the day, a rivalry, and they want to beat each other. But, the Suns got their number the first time. It could go either way. I'm a little nervous, like I said, about the front court injuries right now. They're nothing serious, but they're going to be out. But it's Luka against the Suns. Would I be surprised if he put up like 40, 10, and 10? No, absolutely not. That is great. What he can do.
Early start, too, for the Suns, starting at 6:30 Central Time.
Yeah.
7:30 Eastern. It's an early Mavs game.
I'll take that start.
Something else to know. Yeah, exactly.
I'll sign up for that start all day.
Hey, well, do you have anything else to add on that game, Dunny?
No, I was just gonna ask Steve if any potential Dwight Powell minutes, maybe.
Oh yeah. Oh no, he played
no.
last night. He played last night, and you know what? He played when the game was close, but he also played when we were up 25 on the Chicago Bulls.
Okay.
So was he terrible?
Where's
comment.
JVC when you
No
need
I was
it?
gonna
comment.
say Stray.
JVC
Oh, yeah.
ducked you.
Yeah, I know he ducked to me today. I said,
That's
don't worry.
crazy.
I tweeted at JBC last night. I tweeted at JBC last night. I think he replied. He's like, I'm just happy Buzelis got some minutes.
yeah.
I'm like, all right, JBC.
Listen, man,
Okay,
I will
JBC.
this is a formal announcement. I think I will be in the building Monday night in the United Center as hopefully
Really?
the 11-0 Cleveland Cavaliers are visiting Chicago.
Wow.
And ticket prices are
Hey,
high for Chicago.
I can
Bulls
imagine.
at the moment.
I can imagine.
So yeah, that'll be a good time.
That's awesome.
We'll see though, because that's a nice transition into the next couple games you want to talk about, because we want to talk about the Golden State Warriors, who have a big weekend ahead. They're 7-1. They've been impressive as hell. We talked about them a little last week. I was like, can they keep this up? Clearly, at least for another week. Yes, they can keep this up. Friday night, the Warriors and the Cavaliers. And the Suns may have a very worthy ESPN game, but if you have League Pass, you got to have two screens up and have these games on, because this is as good of an early season Friday night slate as you can get with these two games.
I wish they could flex. I wish they could flex, like, and stack the games, right? The Mavs,
they do later on too, but like
it's too early to, I know.
Yeah, and it still is a nice big game too, like Suns Mavs. It's not like if they're like hurting in that matchup or anything like that. But the Cavs 9-0. It wouldn't be the first time the Warriors have ruined the Cleveland Cavaliers' fun, so I'm very nervous about this game. And just because the Warriors, like, listen, keeping an eye on that game last night, Dunny. Sorry to bring it up again, but if that team, I was fully expecting the Celtics to win by 10 last night and put this Warriors thing to bed. And now this team is it seems like they're for real, but you know, they beat the Celtics on the road. So that's one big thing. The fact that these are their 3 games in a row.
What a
that they have to go. Yeah, 2 Boston, 2 Cleveland, 2 Oklahoma City. So then let's mention that game too. They play the Thunder Sunday night. So they get to run the gauntlet of the best teams in the league on the road to really find out if they're for real. 1 of 3 looks good right now. How do you think we're going to feel about them? I'll start with you, Steve, then go to you, Donnie. How do you think we're going to feel about the Warriors after this weekend?
So we're either going to feel really good, or I think we're going to feel the same we felt today, because I think you guys can agree with me. If the Warriors lose both these games, we won't be shocked. It's at the 9-0 Cavs, who look as dominant as anyone right now, and at the Thunder, who, besides their 1 loss to the Nuggets, have been blowing teams out of the water every
That was
single
an
night.
awesome game last night too. I locked in for the second half of that,
and they beat the Nuggets the first time they played.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
well, the Nuggets got everything to give the Nuggets their props, because we had given them some grief. Every starter was above 20 points last night. They're going to do that.
And right when we wrote off Westbrook, he
scored.
Yes,
he's
29.
Been balling out. Donnie, he's been balling out as soon as we finally gave him up. No, I won't quit him. I won't quit him anymore. But no, I don't think if the Warriors, even if they lose both these games by 20, I don't think we feel any differently than we feel now. I think they're one of the best teams in the Western Conference? I don't think so. I think they're off to a hot start, but I think Donnie will agree with me with this. Is if you got Steph Curry healthy on your roster, your team's going to be competitive, and it's guys have kind of just fallen into the right place. This looks like the perfect spot for Buddy Hield. I mean,
score right now.
Could you pick a more perfect landing spot for Buddy Hield? Podziemski is looking good in year 2. Trace Jackson Davis is looking good in year 2. You guys, like, Kuminga hasn't really had a great year, but he's been fine coming off the bench in most of the games. Like, they're getting help from Moses Moody when they need it. This has just kind of been the Warriors this whole time of their dynasty. Is just kind of this, we need someone to step up, and someone steps up that you've never heard of. And then next thing you know, you got Celtics fans cursing that player's name out for the next month. Like that's just kind of what the Warriors
Kyle
have turned
Anderson
into.
hit 3 threes in 3 straight possessions last night.
Yeah, and that's it. And that's the thing, Tony. It's like that's just how the Warriors have operated. And this is the same thing I said about the Phoenix Suns. Like when Kevin Durant's healthy, like team's always going to be competitive in every game. Same thing with the Warriors with Steph Curry. And Steph Curry even missed a few games and they still won those games.
Yeah.
So It's impressive. It's getting to the point where before I was like, oh, he's just in a good spot. You got to give Steve Kerr some credit at this point, right?
Yeah.
You
I was
have
honestly,
to.
without you even saying this, I was
have
going
to.
to, and
Yep.
I would rather do so many other things than give Steve Kerr.
You know what, Dunny? That I will stop talking. Go right ahead, Dunny. Give Steve Kerr the flowers.
Before you jump in, can we talk about we got to go one more game past this weekend. The game after the Thunder is against your Dallas Mavericks, number 3 in the basketball power index. That's crazy.
A brutal stretch.
How did they get these 4 games
a basketball
in a row?
power index gauntlet.
That is a
Gauntlet.
brutal
Yeah,
stretch.
This is nuts.
It's a gauntlet.
Anyways, yes, Dunny, please give your flowers
Yes,
to Steve Kerr like we know you want to.
They're just super well coached, man. And you brought up the games without Steph that they still won. I said it to you guys before we started recording that it's crazy because they look so good and they look so different from the Dynasty Warriors because obviously no Clay,
Right.
Double obviously no Kevin Durant, but there's still Draymond there, there's still Looney, there's still Steph Curry. But the other night against the Celtics is when obviously I watched the Warriors the most closely. Everyone seems so bought in. They're obviously well coached because Kuminga has made this huge step that we were waiting for. Moses Moody looks better. Gary Payton Jr. looks good. We just mentioned it. Kyle Anderson is shooting 50% from 3. Buddy Hield is shooting 51% from 3. Like everyone's just doing what they're supposed to do for this team. It's working to a T right now. And they kind of punked the Celtics in the first half last night.
Yeah.
The Celtics made a good fight comeback and Tatum had a really good second half, but just wasn't enough. And that's all you can do is credit the Golden State Warriors. And I do have to point out that I liked Buddy Hield on the Kings. I enjoyed his stint with the Pacers. I love how his worst year was with the 76ers last year. And now,
Buddy
Hield, all
Hield,
of a sudden he's balling out in Golden State.
He's shooting 50% from 3 right now.
Yeah.
Crazy, man.
50%. On 9 threes a game he's taking.
Yeah.
50%.
Microwave.
He's their leading scorer.
Insane. It's insane. It's been so much fun to watch them. They just there's so many good players on this roster. Like you said, the improvements from the young guys into valuable NBA players and then the guys that they've added. It's just such a good mix. I'm usually against teams that are running 11, 12 deep. It's like, how can you do that in the playoffs or everything? This might be the team that they're not going to do that in the playoffs. But the whole point of it, I think, is keep the minutes off of Draymond, off of Steph, off of Wiggins, and then they can and honestly Buddy Hield too, and then they can really lean on those guys later on. Those are your 4, and then whoever you need in a game, if it's a Looney, if it's a Kuminga, if it's a GP2, whoever it is that you need to put in that spot with those 4, hope that those guys are healthy and then can put on those big minutes later on. I think that's what it looks like. And then this is just a bonus that it's like, well, we can just play all these guys and then be 6 games above 500 and going into these matchups. So
do you think the Warriors try to make a move, try to make a big splash in this season?
They are the interesting Giannis spot if that
I could see it.
Yeah.
I just don't know if Giannis will be traded mid-season though. I think he's
I don't see it in the season. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know if they make a move.
Maybe I think LaVine's a Laker. I think LaVine's a Laker.
We've been saying that for 2 years, Jake.
Yeah. Well, the Bulls. That is not because the Lakers haven't tried. That's because the Bulls.
That's fair.
Don't know what they're doing. Sorry, JVC.
Right. Tough night for JVC.
Tough night for JVC. Sunday afternoon, the Milwaukee Bucks travel to Boston to take on the Celtics. Dunny, you going to put them out of their misery? Because if you guys win by like 30 or something crazy like that. And now here's the thing. The Bucks lost back-to-back to the Cavs. Both those games were like the same game down to the final possession. Like the Bucks have been in some of these games.
That first one was crazy.
Close. The first one was nuts. Yeah, the Mitchell shot. Yeah, and then that game, the next game was close in Cleveland on Monday night too. But what are you expecting from the Bucks on Sunday? And how are you feeling about the Celtics, even with the loss last night to Golden State?
Even with the loss, I feel pretty good. Like I said, I thought the Warriors kind of punked us in the first half. I think they had like a terrific game plan for doubling Tatum coming in. Everyone knew Tatum was going to try to get his revenge on Kerr, which I think he ultimately did. But, you know, at the end of the day, you're trying to win the game. So it doesn't really matter. But I feel great. I think, you know, the Pacers overtime loss was their only other loss, and the Pacers looked really good. Every other game we've won pretty easily, it seems. And, you know, a couple without Jaylen Brown now, obviously without Porzingis, probably until maybe even All-Star break, but around Christmas, New Year's time is when he's expected back. So I feel pretty good, all those things considered. I mean, they just look like a motivated group that just won a championship, and that's what they are. They beat the Bucks already this year by 11. And the only thing I'll say is the reason I kind of brought up it looks like a bigger issue than just talent and age with the Bucks is because in that game, I watched closely like I do most Celtics games, and Giannis even opportunities down the stretch. I think I saw similar things in the Cavs game, Jake. But it doesn't matter what Giannis's box score looks like sometimes. Sometimes him and Dame down the stretch, it's almost like you guys are way too talented to have possessions that look like this. Yeah. Their half-court offense is just really, really hard to watch at times, and it's baffling just because of how talented those two guys are. So for the Celtics, I feel good. They should be able to win this game easily Sunday. I hope Jaylen Brown is back, but there's no telling with his hip injury right now. He's set to miss his 4th game. So, yeah, I feel good about the C's. Bucks, I mean, we spent some extended time on them earlier, but I will say the Sunday games that we've talked about, it's a good palate cleanser for football if anyone needs a break.
I'm with Steve along the lines with the football Sundays where sometimes I need to go for a walk during first half of the second games or whatever it is. Like it just need a little palate cleanser. We've got some good Sunday NBA games coming up the next couple weeks too. I looked ahead of the schedule, so yeah, it's a good time. All right, let's check in. I don't want to do this to Steve, but we got to do it at least.
We have to
check on the win totals.
We forget, we don't want to do this to Steve. We're talking about I ran away with it last year. Sometimes you got to come back down.
It's a new year. It's a new year. New year, new Steve.
Tough start.
I've taken the lead with the 9-0 Cavs, the 7-1 Suns, and the 7-1 Oklahoma City Thunder, boosting that up. Dunny, I'm proud of you. I'm very proud of you. You've battled back here this year.
I was so nervous totaling these up.
Steve, what happened? Who's failing?
Milwaukee Bucks, Utah Jazz.
Ooh.
Let's see. The list we could go. We could go. Oh yeah, the Pelicans, the Magic, because Paolo got hurt.
The Paolo injury is tough, man.
I mean, yeah, but it's all fair, Dunny, in the win totals draft. It's all fair.
T-Wolves being your first round pick, they haven't started.
Exactly
how we thought it.
T-Wolves haven't been great either. It's been a tough start. It's been a tough start. But you know what? We're gonna battle back. I got faith. We only have like 8 games into the season so far. We're at like almost not even 10% of the way through. I'll be all right. I'm not too worried. Like I said, I'm just giving Dunny a little bit of a head start. Just a little bit of a head start. My teams are gonna come roaring back. But yeah, it's been a tough start. Also, too. I mean, I don't have a 9-0 team on my roster. Sorry.
Okay, well, yeah.
I also don't even care if I lose again this year. I just need to do better than last year.
Last year was brutal.
Listen, you're battling yourself right now. You're in a battle with yourself. I like it. All right, so we always end with spinning the wheel. Well, now we always end with spinning the wheel. So I've decided, guys, I think we should do 3 minutes, 33 seconds because there's 3 of us here. I think that's like a good amount of time to just do it. I'm not going to keep track on the screen because if we want to clip this, I don't want no big timer on the screen as well. Figured that out last week as I was doing. I was like, you know what? This isn't the best to take away. So I'll have a little iPhone timer here after we spin the wheel, and I'll let you guys know. Or maybe I'll just let it go. But the wheel is up. It's ready to go. Let's see.
We're gonna get the Warriors now.
Let's choose our fate. Let's choose our fate here.
Okay, this is fun.
That's all right. We actually did talk about them.
This is good. We haven't mentioned them at all, and they're a team that is helping me in my starts the win total draft.
5-3. They're 5-3. They got
the Houston Rockets.
Really I mean, really deep roster. We talked about this a little bit at the start of the season preview, but this is a really deep roster. Sengun, you know how much I love Sengun, but Jalen Green's starting to take that step, guys.
Yep.
He's starting to take that step this year. Jalen Green looks very, very good.
Fantasy owner, on 2 teams. I'm very excited about that.
Jalen Green looks very good. Tari Eason, Amen Thompson off the bench have been great.
You know what's been interesting, Steve, is there have been moments, and Sengun's been awesome this year. No issues, like, with everything. But Ime has seen in matchups where Sengun, it's just not going to work for him.
Yeah.
And they'll put Amen Thompson at center and go small like that. And he's such a force, and he's so good defensively that he gets away with it just enough, and they can score. They're just so fun. They can score in so many different ways that he can do it. They're just so malleable as a team, and Ime's going to figure it out.
Yeah, and you're right. They could play big. They could play small. I love when he plays small with Amen Thompson and Tari Eason and Jabari Smith, kind of 3 stretch forwards all on the court at the same time with like Jalen Green or Van Vliet in the backcourt. It's a fun team to watch. They play exciting basketball, and they're kind of one of those teams where I think they could be in a game against anyone. And I think that speaks volumes to their athleticism and their depth they have. I don't know if they'll be a legitimate playoff threat in terms of once they get to the playoffs, because I really truly believe to make deep runs in the playoffs, you need to have that one guy who could completely take over a game. But we could be having an entirely different conversation if Jalen Green keeps playing the way he's been playing and kind of has that progression that we saw from maybe like a Paolo Banchero before he got hurt, right? Or, that's kind of where I see this Rockets team. I don't really see him switching up the roster either. I know there were a lot of talks about that. It's like, are they going to move some guys over here? Haven't really seen much from Reed Shepherd, but yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, it's a super fun team. Obviously, I really like the coach. Ime did some crazy things for the Boston Celtics when they appeared to be in a weird time where that's when the Jays were talking about getting split up. All of a sudden, Ime Udoka comes in, changes the culture. Did the same thing with this Rockets team. Like, this is just a fun, deep group like you talked about. They have all these personalities too with Dylan Brooks, Jalen Green. People forget Jeff Green is still on this team.
Oh, yeah.
It's just a fun group. Sengun, one of the more fun younger players to watch in this league. Then you have a yin and yang with Sengun and Jabari Smith. Really cool. And I know we talked about teams in the Eastern Conference that could be buyers, but the Rockets have themselves in this weird place where they're young, they're talented, they have depth, and that, if they want to, they can be buyers at the deadline or any point of the season, really. If they, really like what they see from Green and Sengun and things are working and they want to move on from Jabari Smith or, guys like Amen Thompson and Tari Eason are perfect trade targets for contenders.
Because they're all playing well right now, too. That's the best time to trade someone, when they're playing well. And all 3 of those guys have been playing well this year.
Yeah, so the Rockets just have themselves in this unique position in the league where they kind of have a lot of options and they can go in a lot of directions. And Jake, you nailed it. The Rockets are just better than we thought, I think.
Yeah, it's a fun roster, a young roster that's going to keep growing. Ime's a great coach. Our timer went off. That's our Rockets talk. The wheel, we fed the wheel.
Oh, we did good.
We fed the wheel. All right, that was a great show, guys. That was awesome. So we'll be back next week to talk and hopefully put the Warriors to bed after they're 7-4 and lose the next 3 games. That's what I really want to happen. If the Warriors beat the Cavs, man, I might crash out tomorrow, even at 9-1, just so you know. So that's where we're at. But we're gonna enjoy the weekend of hoops, and next week we'll be back next Thursday. For Dunny, for Steve, this is Jake Micah. Have a great night, folks.